right, good morning, everyone. It's not good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give it a few seconds and let everybody enter the webinar. All right. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. It is 1 o'clock Phoenix time, Mountain Standard Time. Thanks for joining us today. It's February 4th. It is our last technical assistance session. We appreciate you making time to be here. A few things off the top. Would love to have your introductions in the chat. I did enable it so that participants can use the chat to make introductions. Please let us know your name and what applicant organization you are representing. That's helpful. And then I will do quick introductions for those you see on the screen. We've got Richmond and Keeley from Ready. They are with the portal and can address any questions regarding the portal. We also have Okasana Beatty from the Arizona Commerce Authority, the tribal liaison. We have Amy Dorman, our deputy director. We have Jamie Garrett, our senior broadband program manager. And we also have a few others from ACA. We've got Sandeep, Crystal, and Adrian. And then we also have Divya from KPMG and Zach as well. So we're all here to help answer your questions. A few updates before we get started. And thank you for putting your names and information into the chat. Again, this is our last session. We are recording the sessions. We are adding them to the website. We are also taking the questions from the sessions and the inbox, updating our FAQs. The last update was, I believe, from the 18th of January. So we have a few more questions to add, and you should see those up on the website this week. Again, we do have an extension for the deadline. So that has been shifted. Tomorrow was the original deadline. That is now March 7th. But this is the last technical assistance session. Any questions after this will go to that broadband inbox, and then we will answer those questions and also update the FAQs. So for today, there has been a lot happening in the world since the last time we met, and a lot happening with the White House. So we do want to remind everyone today that we cannot comment on executive orders or make any speculations. So today we're asking that we stay focused on the BEAD application for Arizona, and we can assist with your technical questions regarding that. So it will be business as usual. And then after that, I think that's it. I think we're going to jump into any questions. What I'm going to do is turn off the chat, and all questions will go into that Q&A. And I will make it so that everyone can see all the questions and you can upvote as well. Okay, so turn off the chat. So we will turn it over to you with any questions that you might have. I can see that a hand is raised. Let me take a look. All right, so we've got a hand raised from Teresa Ferguson at NRTC. I am going to unmute. Here we go.
Hey.
Right.
Hi, Kelly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So Kelly and Richmond, I think this is a follow-up from last week. So we've dug into this and we're trying to get this straight. Okay. So you're gonna have to bear with me on this one. Question 203. It appears the way the question is worded that an ISP needs to say that, hey, if later I offer a low-cost plan with higher than the 100/20, like I go to 100/100, will the ISP allow the eligible subscriber who already has the low-cost plan to upgrade to the new cost offering? We were told to answer that question no, to eliminate questions associated with requesting a waiver, which populate 204 to 208. But I think the question you're really asking, or maybe that needs to be changed, is, if a service provider improves their service quality to 100/100, can the low cost eligible household access that 100/100? And I think every ISP wants to say yes to that. So I'm wondering if 203 is asking two different questions, and then the questions 204 through 208 get lost. We're not wanting to ask for a waiver. And that's what the 204 through 208 goes into. So if you say, yeah, we're going to help people out and give them better service at this lower cost, then all of a sudden you are answering questions as if you're asking for a waiver of the low cost plan.
So I think, go ahead, Sandeep, sorry.
No worries, Richmond, go ahead. I'm still trying to find that question on the application on my side. I think Richmond and you and Devia can kind of take a lead on that question, and I can follow up on that.
Sounds good. I think I will bracket and leave for Divya or Sandeep kind of the more philosophical question of the, the meaning of the question and how we want that interpreted. But I did misspeak last week. I believe I meant to say 204A is what changes it. And all it does is changes whether or not the waiver requirements questions are required. So if you're not going to apply for a waiver, those questions are not required. Just skip those questions. Does that make sense, Teresa?
So we can respond to 203. Yeah, because 203 and 204 through 208 all seem like they're connected. That's where I'm having,
Yeah.
and I don't have it up and running, Richmond. I'm sorry.
Okay. I just want to answer the question. I'll answer the part of the question I can, which is the waiver requirement questions are not required. You only need to fill those out if you're applying for a waiver, and then I'll pass it over to answer the more philosophical question of the meaning of the section.
Okay, so if we answer, because last week we were told to answer no to this to eliminate 204 through 208. That's not what you're saying. You were saying we should say no to 204A.
Yeah, it just changes whether or not those questions are required or not. I'm sorry, I was off the top of my head and I was a question off last week, but
no, that's totally fine, Richmond.
Your bigger question. So again, I think ignore the waiver questions if you don't want a waiver, and then I'd like to pass it over to talk about, I think there's a bigger idea that you're circling that I think maybe we should discuss.
Okay, so I think it's 203, Sandeep, that it's like, yes, if you're going to offer better service, will that be accessible? And I would think we'd want to say yes to that.
Yes. Yeah. And the answer to the question 204 would be no. And basically the waiver Richmond is talking about, for some reason, if you look into our volume 2, there might be areas where the low cost option 100 by 20 we are asking ISPs to provide might not be feasible within the benchmark FCC benchmark cost and the percentage we have created. That changes every single year, Teresa. So if it's not feasible for a project area due to the customer density or something, that's when you are applying for a waiver. So does that kind of clarify your questions?
I'm hoping so. So I'll get back into it and when I can get to the portal and see what happens. So
yep.
Yeah.
And happy, please feel free to send us an email with a screenshot, okay, and we'll update the FAQ and send you a response.
Because I think so we'll want to say yes to 203, but 204, if you don't want a waiver, you can just not answer those questions.
Yes.
Not applicable. Should we put in an NA or should we just not answer them?
No, not answer that, or no, we would understand.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, it's only applicable if you apply for a waiver that it can exceed $30, but it has to be limited to 50, within 50. So that's the follow-up question. So if you're not applying for it, you can just say yes for meeting that requirement and leave the questions related to the waiver.
I just want to correct one thing. It's actually the $30 was kind of based on last year's FCC's benchmark. FCC update that every single year. So we put a percentage in there in volume 2. So use the new FCC benchmark and create a percentage. You're going to get $30, $31, $32, something like that. So it's very close. But if you're applying for a waiver, that limit cannot cross $50. So that's what Divya was trying to answer.
Oh, well, are you still hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. So do you have to request the waiver if you stay under the $50. I got a little confused with that when Sandeep.
Yes. Yes. So anything over that percentage, and I'm trying to find out at the same time, we can send a clarification email. I
Okay.
think it was 35% or something. We said that in volume 2. So anything above that percentage based on the FCC benchmark cost, you have to apply for a waiver. So if it comes down to 32, I think last time I checked, it was $32.34. So suppose if it's more than that, you go to 35, 36, 37, then you will be applying for waiver. The waiver doesn't make sense to even apply for waiver if you think it's over $50 because it will be rejected.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Then we've got a question from Lisa in the Q&A. Do all CAIs have to be scoped out regardless of eligibility? Only the eligible locations, correct?
I'm not sure about the question, but if you are submitting a proposal and you feel like you cannot add a single CAI, that's totally fine. That's not going to disqualify your application. All you need to cover is eligible locations, BEAD eligible locations. You can take 10% of the CI within a project area, 50% or 100%. It's completely up to you. So I hope that answers your question.
And also just to add to that, so the number of CAIs that you choose for the project area is also part of the scoring criteria. So if you receive multiple applications for the same project area, the application with the maximum number of CAIs proposed to be served will score the highest number.
Right.
Okay. All right, next question in the chat. This is from Dean Nelson. I have heard that the maximum any one provider can receive from the Arizona BEAD program. I have not found where this is reflected in documentation. Is this the case? If so, where is it documented?
I don't think our team ever conveyed that there is a maximum or minimum for BEAD application. One ISP can basically sweep the whole state if they are providing the sufficient match and going through a competitive process. There is no minimum or maximum. I don't think we ever conveyed something like that. So I'm not sure where that statement is coming from, and that statement is not true from our office perspective. If an ISP has financial means and we vetted that option during pre-qualification and they can provide the match, absolutely. Any ISP can take a maximum amount of area during the BEAD funding, and if that application is competitive. Not sure. Happy to answer any additional question on top of that.
Well, he did follow up and said maximum of 50 million per provider.
David or any of our team member, does anyone have any outlook on that?
Yeah, I think if you're referring to the reference price, that's the maximum subsidy available for a project area based on NTIA cost model. That's what we have on the portal. Other than that, we don't really have an estimate for.
Yeah, we don't have
applicant.
any estimate. And actually, if you see in the portal and if you have access, Dean, I'm not sure, Dean, which company you are representing. If you can say that in the chat, would be very helpful. But we said that we are trying to keep the project area within 50 million in the documentation. But if you have access to our portal, you will see there are project area where we cross that number a few times because of the sheer size of the project area, high cost areas in difficult terrain areas and everything. So it's not quite apple to apple comparison across the board. But no, there is no limitation on the application.
Okay. And then Dean followed up. He's from Chepic and had said, thanks, understood. Okay, I'm going to answer Lisa's question next, and then I can see Teresa's hand is up and another possibly as well. Okay, so the next from Lisa at NRTC is, what is sufficient evidence for match verification?
Devyam, do you want to chime in for this question?
Yeah, so the match can be in the form of cash, loan, federal grant or in kind. So if it's a example of the evidence would be a letter from a bank stating the loan amount. So anything that certifies that the match being provided has a evidence document that should suffice, a letter from the relevant authority.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Teresa, I'm going to give you the permission to speak.
Thank you, Kelly. Follow up on 2 questions. First, going back to the CAI question. I think the question that, to refine that, was that if there are CAIs that are not on the eligible list, do we have to include those if they pop up in our research, that there are CAI locations that were not in the eligible list?
No. Our CI went through multiple grueling process of like cleaning up the data, and our team did a great job kind of like, cleaning up those CIs since the publication of round volume 1 by which was August 2023, I guess. So we went through multiple data cleaning process. So no, if it's not on the portal, you are not basically you are not on the hook to submit those, basically serve those locations.
Okay, and what I heard with that, just one more nuance, that the applicants for the PA project area that include the most number of CIAs, absent other scoring, will get the highest scoring for that category.
Their CIs are connected with the scoring here in Arizona's procurement.
Yep.
So the maximum amount of CI you are covering, I think it's 2 or 3 point out of 100.
Yeah.
When you convert them. So if you are covering 100% of the area, you will get the full 3 point. If you are covering 50 point, then you will get half of it. So again, it has to be competitive between 2 ISPs when they're submitting a proposal.
Yes, sir. Gotcha. Okay, so the final, the follow-up on the match. So match verification. I don't think you guys are asking, for example, the applicants to go into underwriting to get, which they have to pay for, to get a letter of credit to demonstrate they could, if you award them, they could bring that much money to bear. Is it possible to use just a board resolution from their board saying we have the match available? Would that be sufficient? And does it need to have a dollar amount, or that the board is confirming whatever is funded after preliminary award, that match will be made available?
Divya, could you please answer that question? But I think we're not just looking at a resolution passed by the board or from the organization. We definitely need to run a cross-check here, Teresa, if I'm not wrong. If someone applies, an ISP applying for, I don't know, like a significant amount of project area, where is this 25% coming in? Because think about it, I mean, this is happening in other state, and some state we're currently going through procurement, where the ISPs came back later on and basically said, this is more than what we got, and we cannot take this project area. That's a very complicated situation for us, especially when we are done with both round 1 and 2. We definitely don't want to be there. So I don't think that just the board resolution will do, but I would invite Divya to add anything. I think what we are asking is a certified letter from the bank or from the financial institute.
Correct.
That for that specific project area, you can provide that matching. It's not just a 25% thing. Probably add any support letter which shows that you have financial means to provide that 25% letter, 25% matching.
Yeah, that's correct. We would require a official letter from a bank or any financial institution that backs up.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there is a nuance that's brewing across the country in this one, guys. So I'm seeing this. You're right, Sandeep. This is everybody's all over the place on this one. Some banks see that if you say letter of commitment, they require the applicant to go through underwriting, which can take 4 to 6 weeks, and it starts costing them money on a grant amount that they're requesting, not what they're awarded. So what some states are allowing is a letter from the bank to the applicant saying, we've had this working relationship with you, you are a, valued customer. When upon your preliminary award, we will go through the underwriting process to get to go to the ILOC. But banks see commitment and they think legal terms that they have to go through underwriting before they can. So a letter of commitment isn't a simple thing. It almost becomes a financial instrument that has costs associated with it before the applicant is even assured there will be any grants to be awarded.
I understand what you are saying, Teresa, but our view or our vision regarding this question is what I explained. I think it's very important to understand if it's a competitive application, and I want to be very fair here. If it's a competitive application, that means a project area where there is multiple application and someone is coming up with actually a letter from the financial institute, we'll definitely favor that application because, of course, it's a competitive process because we know for sure that there is a matching coming. But from our current setting, the way procurement is set up, if there is only one applicant for a specific project area, we might negotiate that into the negotiation phase, that how we're going to handle that. But in case of multiple application, we will choose the best case scenario and make sure that Arizona has the best proposal forward for that specific project area to cover that. So when we wrote our volume 1 or the final proposal, volume 2 and the final proposal guideline, exactly what we envisioned, what I just explained, not from a, it's not from a, like a board resolution or just a letter from the bank that you have working relationship. Unfortunately, that's what we are going to validate in this procurement process. But if there is any change, I would be happy to let you know. But as of today, that's what we are expecting from the ISPs.
Thank you for the clarification, Sandy.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so there are a couple of follow-up questions in the chat. Xavier, I do see your question. I'm going to close out this topic and then we'll get to your question, Xavier. But for Sandeep and Divya, definitely look in there. There's a few follow-ups, and I would say starting with maybe with Lisa. Is an applicant's bank statement verifying funds available sufficient for match verification?
Yes.
Okay, and then Anne has following up on the evidence of cash match question.
Kelly, can I go back to Lisa's question one more
Sure.
time? Lisa, just an FYI, when you are sending or uploading the bank statement, I would highly, highly recommend we talked about confidentiality before. That's a trade secret of your company. I would highly recommend to basically add that paper that this is a trade secret and it should be like kept that way in case of any public information request, so that you are protecting the information of your bank statement or your financial of the company. Thank you.
Okay, and then Anne, following up on the evidence of cash match question, would a letter from the parent company stating that it will cover the cash match be sufficient?
Devi, any thought on that?
I think we'll follow up on that and provide a clarification for all the match related document evidence.
Okay. I think I would say please feel free to look into our FAQ in that case.
Yeah.
I think Paul has a question. Kelly, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So Paul's question is, as a follow-up to the question being considered now, this sounds like two issues. The letter of credit from a bank and a second letter showing we have access to the capital to finance the project. Two separate letters, correct?
Yes. Yes, two separate. I think the first one is sufficient enough. If Paul, I'm reading your question properly, I think the second letter is definitely a icing on the cake. It kind of complement each other. That is definitely a great, supporting document you are providing if you can provide both the letters.
Okay, and then one from Chad. So you are now requiring an irrevocable letter of credit at application rather than at award.
Um, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it is not an actual letter of credit. It's more like a commitment statement from the bank that they're willing to provide it to the applicant. The actual letter of credit, which is the format is given in the guidance, you can look at that for reference. That will be required at the project award stage. So you can go through, and if you have any questions, please feel free to send it to us.
Okay, another one from Dean. My clients have used both letters that say they would qualify without having to go through underwriting until there is an award in other states, or used a letter from a surety insurer. In neither case have they had to show anything in their financials. The NTIA has issued directions on this, and it wouldn't be open to interpretation. Shouldn't be open to interpretation.
Dean, that's a statement from your side. Every single state's volume 2 is different, and Arizona should be treated as a separate guideline, separate entity from any other state. We are not asking you or anyone who has a question regarding the underwriter, we're not asking you to provide anything from the underwriter or underwriting way kind of bank has to go through underwriting process. If that's what your financial institute is interpreting, that's technically does not fall on us. We are basically seeking a commitment letter, that basically a letter from the financial institute that you can provide this match. Unfortunately, if that's being interpreted by the bank that they can charge bond money, or without that they will not underwrite that letter, that's not technically a burden on our side as a state broadband office. We are protecting the interest of the citizens of Arizona so that none of this project goes away in future during the phase of the procurement and the final proposal, and we can move forward with this project. I would say every single state's volume 2 is different. Arizona's volume 2 might be different. And Arizona's volume 2 and any documentation which is currently posted on our website is completely approved by NTIA. So NTIA agrees with us of any document which is posted or any guidelines we have posted. So we will follow through our process. Please feel free to let us know if you have any additional question. Happy to get into that conversation through email.
Okay, so that closes out that discussion in the chat. Back to Xavier. Thanks for your patience. Xavier's question is the expectation that licensed wireless receive less than 45 points, 95, in the technology category, and that fiber is required to receive the full weight.
Yes, because it's not a non-priority. It's not a priority technology. By offering licensed fixed wireless, you're creating a sync between the finances available for those households, mean maximum subsidy available, and a broadband connectivity. Other than that, if you can provide fiber connectivity to those households within the subsidy we are offering to the ISPs, great. Fiber is the priority here.
All right, and he's got a follow-up. Will Davis-Bacon Act wage rates apply? Oh, I don't know if that's the same thing, but now that I'm into it, I'm going to finish it. So will Davis-Bacon Act wage rates apply to all project areas / funding levels, or is there a project threshold below which Davis-Bacon wages will not apply? Another state, for example, only requires Davis-Bacon wages for project areas greater than 5 million.
So Javier, for us, Davis-Bacon will be applied across the project. Our project area, the subsidies are really high because the sheer size of the project area. Our project areas are geographically larger than compared to any other state broadband office's project area. So it will be applied across the board. If a company is not signing the Davis-Bacon certification and giving it to ACA, basically we have to go project area by project area, zip code by zip code, and match the wages kind of like with US Treasury's benchmark. It's a complicated process. I wouldn't say that we did not go through this process. We actually went through for one of our subgrantee in capital funding project through this process. It's a difficult and time-consuming work, which might delay the whole reimbursement and everything else. That's why we are encouraging our subrecipients to sign Davis-Bacon certification. But this is not mandatory. You can deny, and then we have to do the study both as a subrecipient and a state broadband office by ourselves.
Okay, and one in the chat from Teresa. Thank you for using the chat. Is there a form or template for the request for confidential treatment?
We don't have anything, Teresa, on our side, but if you as a organization has a template, when you are applying for grant application, you can send that and we'll accept that.
And that's it for questions in the Q&A. We've still got some time, so here we go. One from Paul. If I understand the application, you can pick either Davis-Bacon or prevailing wages. My understanding is legally, Arizona does not have prevailing wages.
You are absolutely correct, Paul. You don't have to choose Davis-Bacon. Your application will not be disqualified if you don't choose Davis-Bacon. Arizona does not have any prevailing wages benchmark. That's why we adopt the benchmark from US Treasury for those specific jobs which you will be offering to your team as part of this project. And we will match it with US Treasury to see within that zip code or that census block, what is the wage you are offering and what US Treasury benchmark says. So we kind of adopt from US Treasury.
Okay, thank you. No worries, Paul. He says excuse his spelling.
Paul
All
is typing
understood.
from his phone, probably.
All right, there aren't other questions in there right now in the Q&A, but we do have some time left. So while we wait, we've got about 13 minutes left. As a reminder, this is our last technical assistance session. So this is your opportunity to get them answered live. Moving forward, it will be just that broadband inbox. I will put that into the chat. I don't see any other questions. Thank you,
Awesome.
Richmond. He also put in the technical assistance with the portal. That's in the chat as well, that AZ help desk at ready.net. Another from Xavier, considering there will be no additional tech sessions, will the response time improve with emails? I laugh because we get a lot of emails and it takes time to make sure that we are providing an accurate answer. So no judgment, none taken. I appreciate that.
I just want to highlight a few things regarding this. So we do receive a lot of emails, and when we see this email, we kind of scratch our head, feeling that answering this email would be basically answering a strategy in the application. And we actually struggled at how to answer that question without being that we are not going to give you the secret sauce here. So we do struggle. That takes some time to respond. So our email, the way we'll be responding our emails going forward, if that email, that question you are asking through email is already been answered in the FAQ will be we'll keep updating the FAQ. We'll say, please look into the FAQ. This is the page number, or this is already been discussed in the FAQ. That's one kind of answer. The second kind of answer, you might get a response from us letting you know that answer to this question will interfere with the procurement and we cannot answer. So that's one type of question. And other question, anything new, we'll be happy to highlight that into the FAQ and you will get a response from us. But I would say, please go through the FAQ. There are a lot of great questions we received from our partners and stakeholders, and we keep updating the FAQ all the time. Another thing I want to highlight after having today's session, two things. One is when NTI approved Volume 2 for all 50 states, as you are probably aware, all 50 states got approval on their Volume 2 and 6 US territories. Please do note that Arizona's Volume 2 is going to be different than any other state. We followed the NTIA's guideline very closely, but some state has some rules which actually let us kind of be creative in few places. Our project area is different from some other project area in our neighboring state. Everyone is doing their best to make sure their citizens get served and get the high-speed broadband connectivity. So please connect it with our Volume 2 and final proposal guidance and the documentation which is published on our website. It is not going to be equal across the board for all 50 states. So that's one thing. And second thing, now that we kind of extended the timeline for another 30 days, I still would recommend you, please do not wait until last day to submit the application. If you can submit the application 2-3 days prior, that would be really good, because sometimes a massive amount of application submission can create bug in the portal. Where we tested it, we did a stress test, which shows there is no bug, but it's better not to wait until last day. So we have a little bit more time on our side. If you are facing any issue, you're facing any software bug, we have some time, at least 24 hours to troubleshoot those. So that's my request to our ISP, but whatever suits your both. So if you want to submit it on last day and you need a little bit more time, please go for it. So just wanted to highlight that, but we all appreciate all of your partnership and the great question you sent on our way. Thank you so much.
All right, I did put into the chat where you can find all the application materials. It's on the website. Be sure to click that subgrantee application tab. Scroll down, you'll find everything there. A few more questions in the chat. One from Teresa. Please confirm that the BEAD applicants must only provide evidence that they can secure 25% of the grant amount requested, not the full amount of the match the ISP is bringing to the project, correct?
Divya, that's not my understanding. 25% is the minimum. So if an ISP is being competitive in the procurement and offering 35% matching just to be competitive, I think we need the bank letter for that 35%. Otherwise, how we are going to back your claim that you will be providing 35% when we are comparing a side-by-side application? Divya, am I wrong here? Any other interpretation you have?
That's correct. So we have two submissions within the application. One is the letter of credit requirement, where it's minimum of 25%. And if you're opting for a waiver, you can provide a 10% of LOC or performance bond. But the amount of match, the amount of match that the applicants are proposing, that would come under the matching fund details table. And there's an option to provide evidence of those match funds. So that's where you are required to provide an official letter from the bank or whichever financial institution that you're referring to, indicating that amount for the match. So it has to be a document, official document as an evidence.
Thank you. We have a question.
Yes, next one is from Xavier. Even upon submission, will ACA continue to follow up with any clarification questions or face value submission?
I don't think that's our intention, Javier. If your application is, how to answer that question? I'm trying to be political here. So following the closure of round one, we'll have 1 month of review on our side. And that's a daunting task, especially when we are reviewing 100, 125, 130 applications altogether. So during the review period, we will not communicate with anyone, and basically the same procurement rule applies that we would expect that you wouldn't communicate with us. During the negotiation, if there is a project area and there are multiple applications who scored very close with each other, or there is an applicant where we need to know some additional things, we will not request any revision at that point. That might be part of the negotiation when we are negotiating with these ISPs. And I think we are seeing negotiation mostly going to happen in outliers, that what kind of outliers you are covering, what kind of outliers you cannot cover through fiber technology. That's a big thing, what we are hearing from other states as well. But yes, after that, there will be no communication, and you will get notified if you are invited into the negotiation phase. We will sit down with you and discuss a few things at that time.
Okay, and Dean says, I understand that the match is 25% unless a surety bond is used, in which case the bond would have the guarantee the value of the award requested.
Yes, the match is 25%. Dean, you are 100% right. That's the minimum match. If that's what you, in the matching table, as Devia mentioned, if you are offering the same 25% match, so you can upload the same letter from the bank, and that would be sufficient enough. But suppose you are uploading the 25% matching letter, which is coming from the bank, but for that specific project area, your matching is over 25%, then there would be another option in the funding table where you will be uploading that information.
And just to add on that, if you're opting for the performance bond option, you can provide that letter from the bond for the letter of credit section. And in the match section, you'll have to provide the percentage of match that you're proposing along with the official letter from the bank or the financial institution.
And then Xavier had a follow-up too. One letter with total match for all projects or one per?
Devia.
For all projects, no, it will be specific to each project area.
Yeah.
If that's what you're asking. Yeah. It'll be specific to each project area separate.
Okay, and then Teresa's got her hand up, follow up to the question she had in the chat. All right, Teresa, you can unmute.
Thanks, Kelly. I think maybe I'm the only person, but I always know when I have a question, others seem to too. I think there's we're missing something very profound here. I think there's two things that ACA is asking for, and I want to be very clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
The irrevocable letter of credit, it has to be 25% of the grant amount, correct?
Right.
Okay. And separately then, an ISP has to provide evidence of whatever amount they are bringing as match. And does that have to be 100% of the match?
I don't.
Sandeep, I think that's where I think we're cross-talking.
I'm sorry. Let me answer your question with an answer. Why that is 100%? Because I'm confused here.
I am too.
Okay, let me clarify that. So the match is specific to the project. So match can be cash, loan, federal grant, or in-kind, the 4 categories. So whichever match percentage the applicant is proposing, they'll have to list that in the application and then provide supporting documentation. So that is specific to the project area. So whatever requirements are under the letter of credit section, there are 4 options, right? There's one which is 25% of the amount. If not, then 100% of the sub-amount amount if it's a performance bond, or it could be from a credit union, or it could be 10% of the amount for LOC or 10% of performance bond. So out of those 4 options, the applicant can choose one option and provide that. So these are 2 separate information. The first one, letter of credit, is basically referring to the requirements as per BEAD NOFO to provide that letter from a bank, either for a letter of credit or a performance bond. The second one that we're talking about is completely specific to the project, which is how much the applicant is proposing as a match, and then provide the relevant documentation for that. Does that answer your question?
So they have to provide 2 separate documentation. At each project level, you must show evidence of the availability to have access to the amount of the match you're bringing to each project. Secondarily, this is where you're wanting that letter of commitment from the bank as well. showing that you have access to 25% of the grant amount requested.
Or whatever you are proposing as a match.
As that it would offset.
Right.
At least 25, yes. It could be a performance bond as well for 100% of the amount. So whichever option.
Let's stick with, it gets, for me, it's too confusing if we go into options. Let's
Yeah,
just
that's
stick
all
with an ILOC. An ILOC, a letter of credit, at a minimum, that ILOC has to be for 25%
Correct.
of the grant amount, not the match. The match is separate. That is a separate thing.
Right.
Correct.
Because Teresa, one is BEAD requirement. That's the letter of credit
Yep, the
discussion.
BEAD requirement.
Which actually took the whole nation on discussion, right? And
Right.
the NTI changed the guidance and then said, no, you don't have to provide 100%, you can do 25%. So
Right.
one is basically, yes, you are right. The first question is about the letter of credit, which is 25% of the total grant amount.
Yes.
The next one, we are talking about the matching fund. That's a different, basically, ball game right there. If a project area, someone is providing 50% matching to be competitive. So that's the financial statement and the letter from the bank. And this is what we are requesting from the ISPs.
Thank you, Sandeep. My intention and passion wasn't that I disagreed.
No,
on that
these are great
25%.
questions.
Yeah, I'm with you. And in some states even, so I need to ask this question then, in some states they are allowing that match to be only 10%. They enabled that waiver.
We have that option too.
Okay.
We have that option if you apply for the waiver.
You have to
it's
apply.
Not guaranteed. Yeah. Yes, it's not guaranteed.
Okay, we're going to keep moving forward. Just to time check for everyone, it is 1:47. We are over on time, but I'm committed to the questions that are in the chat. Thank you, Teresa. All right, we're going to go to the next one from Dean. The bond letter is for the total award amount requested, though, right?
Right.
Okay. Then one from Nick Alexander. Following up on the letter of credit bond commitment letter, if we have one letter that is sufficient to cover the LOC bond requirement for all applications, can we attach that letter to each application? Or do applicants really need to go through the process of obtaining a separate, smaller valued LOC bond commitment letter for each application?
I would recommend the next one, basically the latter option. It has to be on each specific project area level. That's how the guidance document for procurement was published. So we would say break it up into the project area level and then upload that for each and every single project area.
Okay, so his follow-up was, in other words, if I'm applying for 100 million in grant funds over 10 application areas, do I really need 10 different letters? Or can I submit one letter that commits to the issue bonds up to 10% of 100 million?
10 different letters. I know it's redundant, but that's how we laid out the policies in our guidance document.
Okay. That's all the questions in the queue. Thank you, everyone. It's 1:48, and look for this recording up on our website early next week and those updated FAQs, and use that broadband at azcommerce.com inbox. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.